Hi, everybody. I am Carmen DeValis and founder of Doggies for Dementia Foundation. And today I am interviewing a really special lady, Kelly Kaelin, who has been a family caregiver and whose bonus mom, and we'll ask her more about that, bonus mom is in long-term care now for dementia. And so this is a great opportunity for us to talk about living with how to approach and talk with someone who has dementia, which is a huge question for a lot of people. And a big reason some people are afraid to even talk with people and approach them, right? And which then just leads to more isolation and loneliness. So welcome to Experts Dig In for Doggies for Dementia, Kelly.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
Thank you. All right. So first, what is a bonus mom?
A bonus mom is she's basically my stepmother. I just don't like the term step for any of my step brothers and sisters and moms, so I use bonus instead. So she's my bonus mom. I got her extra.
That's really sweet. And when was she diagnosed? How long ago?
That's probably about 8 years ago. She was diagnosed. We noticed changes back in 2002. So almost 18 years ago, we started noticing a shift in her ability to remember.
Wow, 18 years. Wow. Okay. And so we have an audience of family caregivers and people who know that they may soon be family caregivers or are otherwise impacted. And if there was one big thing one big rock nugget of information on communication, what do you think that would be?
To really step back and sit in your love for this person when you're talking to them. Mm-hmm. They're really very much in the moment, and the next moment they're not going to remember anything that you've said. They don't remember the words. A lot of times they don't remember what they were even talking about. Mm-hmm. And so the communication really comes from a point of feeling. And so what I learned even before my mom was on this journey, because her mom also went on this journey, is that coming from the heart and really thinking about the love that you have from this person is really vitally important when you are talking with them, when you are responding with them, and you start doing things that you wouldn't normally do if you were just talking to somebody on the street. So what I mean by that is, if they start talking to you and they're just talking, it's word salad. It got to a point where it was word salad for us. And so we would just dive in with her. Ask her questions. If she was talking about some experience that she had, we dove into the experience with her. We just asked her questions about her experience. We didn't say, no, that's not right or anything like that. It doesn't help to tell them that they're wrong. Yeah. It doesn't help to tell them that they don't remember. These things, oh, you don't remember, you don't know anything. That doesn't support the situation. Mm-hmm. And so when you dive in and you're really thinking from a point of your heart and your love for this person, then you get to experience their world with them a little bit. And lots of hugs. They really, really get that. They really get those pieces. So for me, it's that really being in that place of love, and that and remembering, even when they get angry or they're off on a tangent or or you've heard the story 500 times, is how much you love this person, and you know that they have a disease, and that's just where they're at. Right. And to accept that and just go, okay, it's where she's at right now. And, you know, let's go to the beach or wherever she happens to be at the moment. So we did a lot of stuff like that. And it turned out to be a lot of play and a lot of frustration as well. But we did a lot of play, and I have some really beautiful memories with her just because I took that stance with her on that heart-to-heart communication. So
yeah, I have friends who were early onset Alzheimer's and able to kind of describe that a little bit better than maybe someone who's further along. So said, I may not remember everything you say or even what you do, but I do remember how it felt. On some level, I know what it felt like to me at the time. And I thought that's really interesting because I think that energy and the feelings with that are something that sticks around a lot longer than the detailed memories of a situation or a conversation or even of the person per se. Remember, like, yeah, I know how I felt. I don't remember exactly who or what, right? And I found that very interesting because I think we're all like that. We just don't stop to really think about it in those terms because we also have our memories to rely on. And
yeah,
you know,
yes, absolutely. That's totally been my experience.
yeah. And so in the beginning then, was this a very conscious effort for you to say, okay, like, or maybe you had to, as things are going on, stop and take a deep breath to go, okay, leave with the heart, leave with my heart. I love her. Let's just stay right there, versus everything that's going on and responding in a different way.
It was totally a new response. I jumped right in. She would get angry and I would get angry right back. She would get frustrated and I'd get frustrated right back. And what I learned after, I guess, you know, several times of responding, meeting her response with my own response, whether it's anger or frustration or what have you, that it didn't support the circumstances. It didn't help in any way. And so, you know, when you step back from that, it's just like, well, do I need to meet her anger with anger? It's a very initial response. I think we do it pretty automatically. I know I was doing it automatically. It's just like, she'd get angry and I would just jump right in with her. And yes, and then the Dukes came out, and that's not where we wanted to go. And so,
and I want to say for a lot of us, that's a natural response, even though it's really not beneficial across the board. It's kind of always better to kind of de-escalate. But our first human response is to go, hold on, right?
And both my dad and I got to a point where she could get angry and we'd look at her and we could ask her what she's angry about. Sometimes we got an answer, sometimes we didn't. Sometimes it calmed her down. Most often it didn't. It's like, if they're going to be angry, they're just going to be frigging angry. And we could tell in the morning that she was going to be angry in the afternoon. There were signs there. So what we did is we both stepped back, and my dad first, because he was with her all the time and I wasn't. And so he said, you know, step back. And so we stepped back, and he says, we don't have to meet the anger with the anger. So, you know, what do you want to do? So at times she just was going to be angry and there wasn't a thing we could do about it. And we just went about our own business, and we literally, and I hate to say this, we ignored her. That wasn't very often, but there were times when that was effective. Most of the time I met her anger with love. And and quite frankly, I've said, well, you know, I understand that you're angry. I love you anyway. And she cussed right back at me. And I was like, well, okay. Sometimes I would just leave the room because that was the best thing. And it would just depend on what she was actually angry about. Right. And so it just kind of got to a point where I realized and I learned that when you could feel the anger, because you can feel it, you can feel her anger. And my response was to calm down. And so now I have the ability to allow somebody to get angry in my presence, and I don't go automatically to anger. Great lesson for me. Great lesson for me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so that was one of the things. Now, it also depended on what she was angry about. So
Right.
one of the things that my bonus mom would do was think I was my dad's girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked a little bit about this, but there is nothing that is okay about that. And there's just nothing that's okay about that. And
No.
so I got to a point where my best response in that situation was to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I just left the room. I could do things like I'd go back if my hair was down, I'd put it in a ponytail, maybe put on a hat or a different blouse or something like that. At least about 15-20 minutes I would let pass, and then I was most often able to go back into the room and everything was calmed down at that point. Not every time,
Yeah.
but that helped a lot. So
That's a wonderful idea, because I never thought about that, was changing how you look a little bit, to kind of break that pattern of what's happening or what they're believing is happening at the time. And as simple as put on a hat or put your hair in a ponytail or change tops would make a big difference, right?
it helped. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think in general for most, because I've learned this from a long time ago, if someone around me was angry and it, is happening regularly, I found if I just kind of go about like everything is okay, even though inside it doesn't feel okay, I'm just going to go about my way, then eventually it's like, well, nothing really happened, and move on, because there's there's just that sense of it's really not worth it anymore, to keep going with the anger or what have you. And it depends. And how do you think distraction worked with your mom? If you use some form of distraction to change, to change the mood as things were going?
Yeah, the redirects are wonderful. That's a lot of what they'll do in full care is redirect them.
Yeah.
Show them this over here, so something else can go on over there. So so the redirects help a lot. It's just a matter of how you do it, I guess, because you can't, you got to be in that very calm place. And a lot of times you really can redirect into something else. It's a little bit of shiny object syndrome with them. And so if
Yeah.
you can remember that and just redirect them into other things, and if you know that they have hobbies that they like, that they still remember that they can do and things like that, it's a lovely place to direct them to. My mom's was always pictures. If you could get pictures in front of her, she'd start telling you stories. And that was a really great redirect for her. Hey, have you seen this picture? Look, it's you with, your dad or something like that. And she would go right into that picture and tell us all about, and we may have heard the story 500 times, but it doesn't matter. It's about her and how she's feeling. And
Yeah.
another,
That one works for a lot of people. Some people it's more upsetting. They'll look and they can't remember and they get frustrated, but a lot find comfort in looking, especially if it was from days that they have better memories of the distant past. And yeah, and I want to say one other thing too with the redirection, and see if you experienced this. When people knew I was just kind of BSing them with the redirection, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this, doesn't that look, and they're like, okay, I know what you're doing there, right? Like they kind of knew, but when I finally I was just a natural thing for me, and I'm just chatting, that it wasn't demeaning, that I'm purposefully kind of manipulating the situation, because some people are really on that and know that. They may not know who you are, remember, but they know when they're being manipulated into something, especially when they're zeroed in on something else in particular. And yeah, so even that is very much from the heart. If you go in with a thing like, oh, I'm really swamped, I got to hurry up and redirect here, and because I can't spend any more time, that frustration that we might hold,
right.
It comes through.
It really does. And you said something earlier about being angry and holding that inside, and they can really feel that. You can too. And to reduce your stress, if you can not feel that, if you can just kind of set that aside, it's really helpful. It isn't easy. I'm not about to say it's easy. Going from escalating to anger to being in a place of love and calm inside took real effort.
Yeah.
And it took a focus that this is my bonus mom. I love her very much. She is not the same person. She's never going to be the same person, but I love her, and I love her. I love her, I love her, I love her. And to remember that, and remember that if it were my experience and I was going through this, I would want to be met with love as well.
Good point. Good point there.
And
Did you do, so you're there visiting them, right? You didn't live, okay. When you went home then, did you do any kind of work with yourself to help you to, I know like some people will meditate on it or journal or do something to help so that we can get to that place of calm and feel good about it, not feel like it's a fake calm that we're doing just so we can run out of the room and scream. There's a big difference, right? To truly being at peace and loving versus doing what you need to and winning that Academy Award because you're really acting and then running out and screaming. So, what did you do, or did you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that really being conscious of the situation and really focused while being with her was the thing that helped the most. And yes, absolutely. I'm a meditator, I'm a journaler, and I think that those helped a lot. The thing that helped me the most was just being aware and being conscious of what's going on and going, you know what? I love her. Where do I want to be when with all of this? And I want to be in a place of love. So that's why I got to that point. And just to tell you, some days that works and some days it doesn't.
Yeah.
And just, and just give yourself a break. This is not an easy situation. There's nothing easy about it. It's a mental stressor. It's an emotional stressor. It can be a physical stressor. There were fights, and my bonus mom threw things. She punched. She tried to bite me once. I mean, just like, and so there are all kinds of stressors, and some days it's easy for you. Like when she was trying to hit me, I had no problem stopping her, and I wasn't mad at all.
Right.
So I was able to very appropriately react to her being angry. And it was all okay with me. Wasn't okay with her, but it was all okay with me. And then there was
not about you anyway. It's not like in other relationships when that happened, it involves you in a different way, right?
Right.
It's not as much about you. And I just want to point out what a beautiful thing this is, because it sounds challenging for a lot of us to be able to do that, but then you add on top of that this person that you're loving and you're thinking about and transmitting that love to them, going, I love them, and you're also grieving for the person that you miss, right? They are who they are now, but it doesn't mean you don't miss who they were. Absolutely. Or how you envisioned it being, or the dream of your life at that point had dementia not happened. And that grief just is a daily thing as you watch, right? So while you're watching somebody kind of spin out of control, you're also just crying inside because you're just like, oh my gosh, I would give anything for this to be different, right? And there are days, right? But it is what it is.
Yes, I think acceptance is a big thing. The space between acceptance and the space between where things are and the way things where you wish they were is pain.
Yes.
And so getting to acceptance is a big deal. And just how can you do better? I was very impressed with my father. My father would caretake with her all day long. And he would go to bed at night, and before he fell asleep, he would think about he'd think about his day and what he could have done better.
Wow.
which I just thought was, he was so thoughtful through it. And it
Wow.
was just like, how could he have dealt with whatever the situation was better? And
Yeah.
he came to a conclusion of, you know what? I just do my best. I
Mm.
just do my best. And some days your best is wonderful. You meet the fight with love.
Mm-hmm.
And other days you just want to decker, you know, it's just like,
Yeah.
I
You
better
gotta,
leave
you gotta walk away.
it alone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you got to give yourself, as a caretaker, you really got to give yourself a break.
Yeah, you got to give some grace there for
Yeah,
all that's happening. And I agree with acceptance, and for what. And I think one of the things I learned was surrender. At some point I just had to surrender, and like, okay, I surrendered how I envisioned a life, or my life, or that circumstance, and just really let it go, which is a whole lot harder than it sounds.
mhm.
And it didn't mean you didn't continue to try hard and work hard and do what you needed to do, or like your dad, like, how could I have been better today, or what could I have done differently? But you surrender over that this is what it is, and that acceptance of that.
Yeah, I think that helps the stress a lot, and
Uh-huh.
it helps the pain a lot. It
Hmm.
doesn't make it go away. It
No.
just reduces it to a place that's really pretty manageable,
Mhm.
and a place where you can support yourself, because the caretakers are the ones that really are in the stress point.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're the ones who are, a lot of times they die first,
Hmm.
because they're under so much stress. And so really taking care of yourself is really, really important. And
So,
so like my dad, he tap dance once a week. He's in the shrine, and so he did some shrine events that he could go. Now he could only go for a couple of hours a day, or at a time. And
hmm.
then it got to a point where he couldn't leave at all. It's just like, I can't. And so what we ended up doing was get somebody to come in so he could continue to do those events and do the socializing that he needed, so that he could be supported, so that he could then fully caretake for my mom. So
Yeah.
that's really, I think that that's really, really important. He did not want to accept help. He didn't want somebody to come into the house, and she certainly didn't.
No.
And it got to a point where we were like, you need this. And, I'm in Oregon, and, I'm, thousands of miles away from my dad, and I can't be there to go caretake for her on a regular basis. I could, while I was there, absolutely. But when I'm here, I couldn't do that for him. And
Right.
yet he really still needed all of these outlets, and to get into a place where he could actually have a conversation with somebody that's an adult conversation, and not I guess um, I don't know. I don't know what to,
Caregiver, it's a role.
yeah, the interactions with her were very different than with someone who's not ill. And
Hmm.
so that's really, you really need to be aware of that. And they need, and I think that I would encourage people, the caretakers, to make sure that they have activities at least 2 or 3 times a week to get out and do something else,
Oh, for
and
sure.
not just
We
grocery shopping.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. You've got, a cup, and you give and give and give, and then that cup runs dry. And if you don't refill that somehow, which for a lot of people it is, sometimes the caregivers and the person who, when the hired caregiver comes in, or relief, or they're like, I just need to go lay down for a couple hours and not worry and not be thinking about what's going to happen, because they don't have that opportunity when it's just the two of them. They really have to, like, basically sleep with one eye open and one eye closed,
Mhm.
just to be sure, because you just never know. And to just have a short break without that. And but I will tell you, a lot of the people I've worked with, and both as a nurse practitioner and then after, uh, feel really guilty doing that. Like, it means that they're not doing good enough. especially women, we feel like we're not doing good enough. And I'm like, you know what? You're doing a great job. It's not an indication of whether you're doing a good job or not. It's an indication that you're taking care of yourself so you can run the marathon versus wear yourself out on a sprint.
Mhm.
And dementia care is a marathon. I mean, look, you said 18 years, right? That's
Well,
really
yeah,
long, but
it is. And a lot of that, he wasn't doing a full caretaking, understand that.
sure.
So yeah, I forgot what I was going to say.
About a cup, maybe filling your cup or
Oh,
needing to,
yes, thank
or
you.
feeling
Thank you very much.
guilty.
Yes, it's really, really important that you take care of yourself. It's just
Mhm.
like you said, you've got this cup, and uh, and and absolutely can't feel guilty about taking the time. As a matter of fact, I think it is so much worse to not take care of yourself. And hold on a second, I'm about to get a bark here.
That's
Uh,
okay. That's okay.
not take
It's
care of
real
you.
life.
It's really important. If you don't take care of yourself, I think that's actually more selfish. It's martyrdom, and
Yeah.
it's taking care of you. And if you don't take care of you, there is no way that you can take care of someone who actually has dementia, when you're actually doing the caretaking and making sure that they're safe and that they're fed, that they're taking their medications and everything else that comes with the daily interactions or the daily caretaking of
Right.
someone who's there. And this is not easy. It is not easy. It is not, there is nothing easy about it.
No.
Nothing easy about it. It's stressful on all kinds of levels. So getting the time for you is vitally important. Vitally important.
Yeah. And it's a tough thing, I think, even when I'm thinking about generational, right? So there are yet some younger caregivers, but many are in kind of that sandwich generation, right? They might be caring for their parents and still have children, or young adult children, and have grandkids, and there they are trying to, and still have a job and manage and go, okay, what do I give up? What do I keep? And what sacrifices are needed, and what's the plan going to be. And oftentimes the one person that they would look to for support in making those decisions is not available anymore. They're not able with that insight and judgment, and so the person then is left to make these decisions. And I can't really speak about men because I haven't talked to that many men about self-care and things, but I know for women of a certain age, you talk about self-care and the word selfish comes up instantly.
Mhm.
Everybody else first. I'm this and this first, and then I take care of myself. And
Yeah.
and then when you bring in caregiving, it's a whole reframing around how we envision taking care of ourselves. And it's a lot of emotional strain to even deal with, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
selfish, it's self-full.
Yeah.
It's taking care of you so you can take care of this person.
Yeah.
And
I
if you
think
don't take care of you, you can't.
it's that mindset, right? And the mindset that if I take time for myself when there's still things to do, then oh man, I'm failing. I'm not enough. And I heard it over and over, and then I witnessed it in myself too, right? Oh, I've got two
Absolutely.
businesses and I'm da 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 da, and self-care comes last. Wait, I cannot be successful unless I take care of myself in order to keep doing that. And it took a real shift in the way that I thought about it to do it, because my go-to reflex would be, oh, I can just skip that little bit of sleep and I'll be okay, right?
Right.
Oh, I can just skip this meal and it's all right because I got to get this done, or else ABC. And it was
And,
a reflex, go-to reflex.
right. And in a marathon, if you start doing something like that, it starts compounding on top of each other, I guess. Yeah. And
Right.
so it creates illness and problems and stress. And it got to a point for my dad where his stress level was so high, he was just like, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. I literally came back from 2 weeks. I had visited him, gone someplace else for a week, and came home. And that night, we were texting back and forth, and I knew I had to go back, and I knew I had to go back the next day.
Oh,
It was just like, it just got to that point. I knew, I could tell by the conversation. He wasn't saying it, but I could tell by what he was saying that his stress level was out of sight. And if we didn't bring that down, it was going to kill him.
yeah. There's a
And
tipping point. Yeah. There's a
and
tipping
so
point.
I ended up going back, and I said, I don't know when I'm going to come back, because until she gets put into full care, I'm there. And so at some point in time, getting somebody else in there for a little while can help a lot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's things I would say is know where you want to place this person,
Mm-hmm.
and know in advance. And then there's timing to it as well. I know we didn't talk too much about this, but there's timing to it. You can put them in too early, and you can put them in too late, and they won't get comfortable in their environment, and they don't settle in.
Right.
And so knowing about where that is, and the disease is very predictable, knowing about where that is really important as well for them,
Mm-hmm.
and paying attention to that.
Right. And personality issues, and and for some, they're not really sure what they want to do. The plan was, I promised mom or dad or my husband I was going to take care of them to the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes so difficult, and they're like, wow, I don't know if I can keep my promise.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I can't talk to them about it and explain. And I think bringing in the caregivers or relief or even respite for a week or two to be able to consider all the options with a clear space and clear head is so important. Because when you're in the midst of it, it is really, you might feel like you can make decisions and stuff, but the truth is it's like being in a tornado, and you're really just seeking shelter for a while. But to bring in and to get that break to consider, is placement an option? And if so, when's the best time? Who do I call for resources? And, I always believe that needs to be pretty clear up front, not necessarily the decisions, because that can change, but at least to have the resources. Who are you going to call? I sound like Ghostbusters, right? Who are you going to call? And who are you going to ask? And what, or personal, one-on-one counseling and support for caregivers or support groups. And,
Mm-hmm.
because there are big decisions, and they're very unique to each family. And you're right, timing is really important for everybody concerned, because it's hard on the caregiver too, and
Right.
the family.
And they get to a point where they're much more of a danger to themselves than at other points. My dad told my mom that he would take care of her as long as he could.
Okay.
And I think that that's more realistic,
Mm-hmm.
because at some point in time, you can no longer do it. It's more than a one-person job.
Well, how beautiful that they talked about that before when she was
Mhm.
still able, because a lot of people do not. They make that promise, and maybe they made that promise when they were little children even. I've heard this. I promised her since I was a little kid I would always take care of her, and now
Right.
I must follow through. And
Well, putting them in full care is taking care of them.
yes, and that's the definition. Like, well, what does that really mean? And or
Right.
sometimes I promised that she could live out her life in this home, and even though, I mean, I can think of one in particular. The daughter was just feeling so guilty and overwhelmed because she had placed her mother in a memory care, and she was there every day. But her mother was this incredible businesswoman her whole life, and ran board meetings there with the other residents and loved being social. That had she been at home with just one caregiver during the day, or her daughter, she would have been bored, really bored. And but still, the thought was she felt like she abandoned her mom.
I
And
think
that's
you bring up a wonderful point. They get a lot more socialization when they're there. And
and there's different, but you're right, for the most part, if they are social, if they enjoy that and are capable, it is a good thing. And some of that, like you said, is timing, because it can, if it's at the wrong, gone on a little bit too long, and then to have a new place and new surroundings and different stimuli, even the holidays would set some of my patients off, because the decorations are different and the noises and da 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 da, and it was too much, right? And staff would call and like, did y'all put up your decorations today? Because that's the problem, that's the situation. And maybe keep the lights off for a while and do it incrementally, and
Right.
things like that. And same thing at home. But yeah, so right, placement decisions, that's a whole big, lots of discussions around that.
A
And
lot of discussions around that, and you want to do the best that you can, and
yeah.
find where they're going to be well taken care of, and really well taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
and just find the best solution for them. And
Right.
really, I mean, that's really what it's all about, is taking care of them. And yeah, and it does, it just gets to be too much. It takes about a village to take care of a dementia patient. It really does. And we're trying to do it with one person.
And and I do think that there's a time to also turn off the social noise, because, and I don't mean social media in general, I mean in the for people who have never been a caregiver, the thought of, oh, well, he's just taking care of one lady, and she's in her 80s, so I mean, can it really be that big of a deal? I mean, these are the comments I hear from people who've never done it. And so sure, they're quick to judge that, oh my gosh, you put them in when they should be at home, it shouldn't be that hard, or and I'm like, okay, clearly you have no idea what it's like. No idea. Or
it wears on you and wears on you, and it's 24/7, and you don't have that other person to talk to. My dad said probably the worst part of it was the loneliness, because he couldn't just say, hey, what do you think about that? Because she couldn't comprehend.
Yeah.
She couldn't. She couldn't comprehend it. And so there was a lot of the loneliness around it, and the sadness that he couldn't talk to her anymore.
Right.
His life.
Oh, it's hard to wrap my head around that, even to think that you're just arm length away from your best friend, but they really can't converse with you in a manner that can feed you, and you're really not able to get out to a lot to do more with that. All the more important for that, getting some help and taking care of yourself. And okay, so Kelly, we've had a lot of great things to talk about, and I'm so grateful for all you've contributed, because I know that this can help others, and if not, at minimum open up that conversation for families to say, let's talk about this now, and not wait, because it is that important. And I have one question for you, and I have to just take it, like, okay, this is a good one for you. I can't wait. So what makes you brave?
What makes me brave?
Mm-hmm.
What makes me brave?
What makes you brave?
I guess being pushed to a place where I have to remove the veneer, the social veneer, and really get down into myself, into my values. And when those values are pushed against, I think that's when I get brave.
To what really matters, right?
What really matters, yeah.
That's when the courage comes out. I love that. See, I knew you'd have a great answer for that. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on Expert Dig In for Doggies for Dementia. And I am really grateful, and I look forward to some of the comments that people will make, and because this topic is a very heated topic.
It is, and I'm so glad that you're doing this series. It's not talked about, and it's kind of tucked under the rug, and it needs to not be anymore. There's nothing to be afraid of, and it doesn't have to be awkward. It's a little weird. but it doesn't have to be awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really appreciate that you're bringing this out into the light and that we have a chance to talk about it. And I truly, truly hope this helps people out.
I think so. Well, Kelly, we are done with this for today, and thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And, take care of yourself, and you've inspired me to take better care of myself too, so thank you. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.